The man's face turned ashen, his lips trembling uncontrollably as terror seized his heart. He pointed shakily, unable to form coherent words. Before him stood what should have been nothing more than a constructed puppet, a beast shaped by artifice. And yet, this creature spoke. Not only did it speak, it carried itself with a wicked intelligence, its expression dripping with malice like a devil born from the abyss. "You, what you?" The massive wolf-like figure barked, its tone dripping with disdain as it lifted a heavy paw and slammed it onto the man's head with domineering force. "Open your ears and listen well. I am the glorious little Asura, terror of all realms. And this is my master, a being far more exalted than even I. When my master speaks, you will answer, every word, every detail, or else." Its voice lowered, becoming cold and sinister, like the whisper of death creeping through a graveyard. "I will tear off your limbs one by one, and when that is done, I will feast upon your fifth limb." A chill shot through the man's body like a blade of ice, his legs instinctively clamped shut, his entire being trembling in horror. The image alone was enough to shatter what little courage remained within him. This was no ordinary threat. This beast was deranged, cruel, and utterly shameless. Faced with such terror, the man's will collapsed like a crumbling wall. He had already been captured without understanding how, dragged into this strange and unfathomable place. Now standing before this monstrous dog and its equally unfathomable master, resistance was no longer an option. Ling Han stood calmly, his gaze steady and sharp, as though he were observing an insect. "Why did you build this altar?" he asked directly, his voice calm yet carrying an undeniable authority. The man hesitated, his lips quivering. "This?" Before he could finish, "Ah!" A blood-curdling scream tore from his throat. Without the slightest hesitation, the Asura Demon Emperor had already acted. One of the man's arms was ripped off, torn away like a fragile branch snapped by a storm. There was no mercy in that action. To the Asura Demon Emperor, beings of the immortal realm were nothing more than ants. He hailed from the netherworld, where cruelty was as natural as breathing. Whether it was tearing off an arm or crushing a throat, such acts stirred no emotion within him. As the man stared in horror, he saw the wolf's gaze slowly shift toward his remaining arm. That single glance shattered what remained of his resolve. "I'll speak! I'll speak!" he cried out desperately, his voice breaking. "It's for blood sacrifices. The altar is used to dispel the violent aura of a treasure buried beneath the earth. Without the sacrifices, there would be no way to retrieve it." Ling Han's eyes narrowed slightly. "A treasure?" he murmured, a flicker of surprise crossing his expression. "This operation, was it ordered by your emperor?" Yes, it was his imperial majesty's decree," the man answered hastily, no longer daring to withhold anything. Once fear had cracked his defenses, the rest of his resistance crumbled entirely. Ling Han fell into thought, his mind racing like a storm gathering strength. A decree mobilizing the army. This clearly shows the emperor values this treasure greatly, he said slowly, piecing together the truth. And yet, he has not come personally to retrieve it. His gaze sharpened. That can only mean one thing. Even your emperor cannot claim this treasure directly. He must first use blood sacrifices to suppress its violent aura. Only then can it be taken. The moment his conclusion was spoken, clap, 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 clap. The Ashura Demon Emperor immediately began clapping his paws together, his voice brimming with exaggerated admiration. "Master is wise, Master is brilliant, Master is the radiant sun illuminating the path of this humble Ashura." But before the praise could settle, another scream rang out. The captive stared in disbelief, tears streaming down his face. "Why did you bite me again?" The Ashura Demon Emperor glared at him coldly, his wolf eyes filled with disdain. "My master has delivered such a profound and brilliant deduction, and yet you dare remain silent? Are you plotting rebellion?" The man nearly coughed up blood from frustration. If he had power, true power, the first creature he would crush would not be Ling Han. It would be this cursed, vicious dog. Ling Han ignored the absurdity and continued calmly. "What is this treasure?" I don't know," the man cried, shaking his head desperately. "Ah!" Before he could even finish, his second arm was torn off. "I really don't know. I swear I don't," he shouted in panic, terrified that his legs would be next. The Asura Demon Emperor finally paused and turned to Ling Han. "Master, it seems he truly knows nothing." The man's heart bled with grievance. You attack first and ask questions later. And now you say that? Thankfully, as an immortal, severed limbs could regenerate with time. Only injuries infused with lingering martial intent would prevent recovery. Otherwise, such wounds were merely temporary. Ling Han placed a hand on his chin, lost in contemplation. Sensing this, the Ashura Demon Emperor dared not disturb him. Instead, he gestured for the captive to step aside, preparing to extract even more information later, anything to earn his master's favor. Meanwhile, Ling Han's thoughts deepened. The Eternity Sky Emperor had used the invasion of the Golden Lion Nation as a smokescreen. His true objective was the treasure buried beneath this land. Ling Han recalled what he had seen along the way. Within 1,000 miles, the earth was drenched in blood. All living beings had been wiped out. Humans, beasts, even plants, nothing had been spared. They had all been harvested as sacrifices. Even if mortals were considered ants by immortals, such slaughter was madness. No wonder the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had sealed off the raging river to prevent the truth from spreading. For once this secret was revealed, it would undoubtedly ignite the wrath of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. But secrets could not remain buried forever. Ling Han's eyes gleamed as two possibilities formed in his mind. First, the treasure was so valuable that the Eternity Sky Emperor was willing to risk infamy, even war, to obtain it. Second, it might be a supreme god tool. If such a weapon fell into his hands, the Emperor's power would become unmatched. Even if the truth came to light, who would dare oppose him? In this world, strength dictated all. If one possessed absolute power, then opinions of others were meaningless. A ruler who could crush all opposition had no need to fear dissent. Ling Han's expression darkened. This is no ordinary scheme. This blood sacrifice technique is monstrous. And yet he proceeds without hesitation. His eyes hardened. That means what he seeks is worth more than the fury of two majestic empires. A faint clap echoed. Ling Han had made his decision. I must destroy this plan. The simplest method would be to seize the treasure first. But even the Eternity Sky Emperor could not approach it without suppressing its violent aura through blood sacrifice. What chance did Ling Han have? He recalled the faint traces of that aura. How even a mere leakage could take form and attack the spirit. If that was only a fragment, then how terrifying would the full force be? Could he withstand it? If I still had the absolute beginning stone, he muttered inwardly. A trace of frustration surfaced. His thoughts drifted, unbidden, toward Empress Luan Xing. For a fleeting moment, he even imagined kidnapping her and giving her a firm punishment. That thought alone caused him to grimace. Unknowingly, her presence had already rooted itself within his heart, surfacing at the most unexpected times. She was like a siren, dangerous, irresistible, and overwhelmingly powerful. Ling Han shook his head, forcing the distraction aside. If I cannot take the treasure, then I will disrupt everything. His plan crystallized. He would create chaos, free all the captives, and shatter the rhythm of the blood sacrifices. Then he would retreat immediately and report everything to the imperial capital. Let Empress Luan Xing handle it. A clash between emperors was not something he could interfere in. Moreover, his fate was already tied to the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. If the Eternity Sky Empire rose unchecked, the balance of power across the joint peace planet would collapse. And in such a world, a genius like him would become a threat to the ruler. A tyrant would never allow a rival to grow. Not to mention, he still carried the burden of the great Ling Empire. He could not allow it to fall. Then it is decided. With that, Ling Han vanished from the Black Tower. Outside, the corridor was quiet. Only a single guard patrolled this level. His sudden disappearance would not be noticed until the next shift. In the blink of an eye, Ling Han appeared before a prison cell. The divine sword flashed into his hand. With a few swift slashes, the iron door was cleaved apart as though it were paper. Then, standing before the prisoners within, he broke into a faint smile. Do you all wish to leave this place? In the deepest reaches of the altar's prison, where dim light flickered like dying embers, and the air reeked of suppression and despair, 7 demonic beasts huddled within a single cell. Their eyes, once filled with ferocity, now stared in stunned silence. Before them stood a human who claimed he had come to rescue them. For a fleeting moment, disbelief overwhelmed instinct. Then, like a suppressed flame rekindled by a sudden gust, hope surged violently within their hearts. Human, a voice boomed, low and heavy, like a mountain trembling. It came from a black bear no taller than a meter, yet his presence carried a lingering majesty. His pupils glowed with a strange purple light, a remnant of ancient bloodlines. If you free me, this old bear will owe you a debt that shakes heaven and earth. This was no ordinary beast. Though now shrunken and humiliated, his true form belonged to the high extreme of the mountain river tier, a bearer of the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the overlord heaven bear. To be reduced to such a pitiful state, it was a disgrace that burned like poison in his bones. Ling Han merely smiled faintly, calm as still water. I can remove the restrictions placed upon you, he said evenly. But tell me, with just the 7 of you, do you truly believe you can escape this slaughterhouse? The words struck like cold steel. Silence followed. Then a golden donkey, its entire body gleaming like forged sunlight, stepped forward. Its gaze was sharp, intelligent. What is your plan? It asked. These were no ordinary prisoners. Every being confined here had stepped into the immortal level. Lesser creatures had already been slaughtered outright, their vitality too insignificant to warrant ritual. But those at the mountain river tier, their lives were too valuable. They were kept alive, waiting to be sacrificed. Ling Han's lips curved into a faint grin. I possess a secret art, he said, voice lowering, one that allows me to move freely within this place. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. I will release all the prisoners here. A ripple of shock passed through the 7 beasts. And then, Ling Han continued, you will all rise together. In that chaos, even if most fall, a portion will escape. The cell fell into silence once more. This was no perfect plan. This was survival, at the cost of countless lives. But for those already condemned, even the smallest sliver of hope was worth grasping. The 7 demonic beasts exchanged glances. Then, one by one, they nodded. We'll do it, they roared in unison, voices echoing like thunder in the confined space. The next instant, before any could react, Ling Han struck. His movements were swift, precise, merciless. In a breath's time, all 7 beasts collapsed into unconsciousness. With their cultivation suppressed, they were powerless before him. A flicker of spatial energy rippled, and the 7 vanished into the black tower. Within that mysterious realm, Ling Han effortlessly shattered the seals that bound them. When they awoke once more, their strength had returned. Their auras surged like raging storms barely held in check. Shock flooded their expressions. What had just happened? They remembered only darkness, and now their power was restored, yet none dared act rashly. If they moved too soon, everything would be lost. Thus they waited, silent, coiled, ready. An agreement was made without words. The moment rebellion erupted, they would strike without hesitation, even if only a fraction were freed. They would gamble everything. Ling Han moved on. Cell after cell, prisoner after prisoner. He repeated the same words, igniting dying hopes in hearts long resigned to death. And they all agreed, without exception. Because for those already standing at death's door, even a single thread of survival was worth clinging to. The operation unfolded with eerie smoothness. Despite freeing countless prisoners, the prison remained quiet. No alarm, no disturbance. Ling Han concealed himself in demonic chi, masking his identity completely. Even if someone saw him, they would see only a stranger, a phantom, a non-existent figure wielding a spatial god tool, something no one could trace back to Ling Han. Floor after floor, he ascended. Each step was calculated, each movement precise. Guards fell silently before him. All of them, mountain river tier cultivators, whether low or medium extreme, were nothing more than stepping stones. The 7-kill subduing soul technique swept through them like a silent reaper. No sound, no resistance. They were subdued and drawn into the black tower before they could even cry out. Do you all wish to live? Again, the same question. This time, he stood before a cell holding 4 humans and a small dog. The dog was weak, merely at the shattering void tier. How it had survived this long was a mystery in itself. The 4 humans nodded frantically. Hope surged in their eyes as Ling Han explained his plan. Without hesitation, they agreed. The same method followed: unconsciousness, transfer into the black tower, removal of restrictions, restoration of power. Everything proceeded as before, but just as Ling Han turned to leave, a tug halted him. He looked down. The small dog had latched onto his pant leg. Hmm? Ling Han raised a brow. I want to follow you, the dog said. Its voice was calm yet determined. Before Ling Han could respond, the dog vanished. Completely. Even Ling Han's divine sense could not detect its presence. For a brief moment, it was as though the creature had never existed. Then, just as suddenly, it reappeared, standing exactly where it had been, no longer biting his pant leg. You can turn invisible? Ling Han asked, curiosity flickering in his eyes. This ability, it differed from the Black Tower, yet achieved a similar effect. Only for a short time, the dog replied. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been caught. Ling Han studied it carefully. Are you sure you won't slow me down? The dog puffed out its chest. I won't. It was small, insignificant in appearance, and precisely because of that, easily overlooked. Ling Han nodded. Very well. In truth, he had already considered the risks. In the coming chaos, many would die. If he left the dog behind, its survival would be uncertain. Bringing it along was the safer choice. As for the secret of the Black Tower, he was already a non-existent identity here. There was nothing to trace. Thus, man and dog moved together, a strange partnership forged in the depths of danger. They continued forward, dismantling cells, releasing prisoners. And the dog proved its worth. Its teeth were terrifyingly sharp. Even reinforced iron bars crumbled beneath its bite. Not only that, it swallowed the metal whole. Ling Han couldn't help but marvel inwardly. If he had such a companion, it might even surpass the usefulness of the Asura Demon Emperor. Time flowed silently. Half a day passed. 2/3 of the prisoners had been freed. Victory seemed within reach. But then, the sound of wheels echoed through the corridors, creaking. Unmistakable, Ling Han's expression darkened instantly. Not good. A new batch of prisoners had arrived, and with them, the truth of what had happened below it would soon be exposed. Sure enough, moments later, chaos erupted. Clashing sounds rang out. Shouts of alarm echoed like thunder. Alarm bells screamed through the prison. The silence shattered. Attack! Something's wrong! The entire structure trembled as the prisoners surged forward. Bang, bang, bang! Cells burst open. Figures charged out like beasts unleashed from cages. A desperate battle for survival had begun. We must move, Ling Han said immediately. Yet instead of escaping, he turned deeper into the prison. He would release more. Even now, he chose to expand the chaos, to give more a chance to live. The small dog nodded calmly. After witnessing everything, it understood completely. Ling Han possessed a spatial god tool, an incredible one. Entering and exiting it was enough to break any seal. There was no fear in its heart, because when the final moment came, it only needed to follow Ling Han into that hidden world. Even if the heavens collapsed, they would remain untouched. And so, amidst rising chaos and the roar of battle, Ling Han continued forward, a silent storm moving against the tide, releasing hope, one cell at a time.